Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. Friedrich Nietzsche. You were told that love would save you, that it would be pure, redeeming, unconditional, that the right woman would heal the cracks in you that you were too afraid to explore alone. From childhood, from stories and songs, a promise was whispered into your subconscious. One day, someone would arrive and make everything okay. And you believed it. Not because you were weak, not because you were naive, but because no one ever gave you the tools to see through the illusion. But what if that promise was never meant to be fulfilled? What if the love you seek isn't salvation, but strategy? What if nature, the philosopher you were warned not to trust, saw it all coming? Nature didn't write fairy tales. It wrote like a scalpel, cutting through masks, myths, and the emotional comfort zones we build to shelter our egos. When it looked at love, at women, at how we interact, it wasn't pretty, it wasn't polite, but it was real. And most of us, especially men, are still not ready to hear it. Because here's the truth. You don't love her. You love the version of her that reflects who you wish you were. You love how she makes you feel important, how her presence tells you you are worthy. But validation is not love. And what you call love might only be a finely tuned illusion, crafted to keep you emotionally obedient. For generations, women had to learn to wield power in a world that refused to see them. They weren't given swords, so they learned to fight with silence. They weren't given control, so they mastered influence. Not because they are inherently manipulative, but because they were forced to operate from the shadows while men ruled the light. And this is where the modern man still sees dimly. You mistake strategy for softness. You confuse adaptability with innocence. You think she's fragile. You think her love is unconditional. You think her tenderness is purity. It's not. It's strength, polished, rehearsed, and performed with precision. While you pour out your emotions and call it vulnerability, she scans your words for leverage. While you dream of soulmates, she calculates the cost of closeness, measuring need against control, desire against influence. Not out of malice, but instinct, because she learned long ago. The one who sees the game, but doesn't speak of it, wins. And you were taught to idealize, to place her on a pedestal that justifies your blindness. You don't see the strategy because you don't want to see it. It's easier to believe in the dream, the muse, the good girl, the healer. But what if those roles are just masks? Masks she was taught to wear because they work. Nature didn't expose the lie to destroy women. It exposed the lie to destroy the fairy tales men tell themselves about women. As long as you believe she's morally superior by nature, that her attachment is free of motive, you will continue to surrender your will in exchange for emotional safety. And she will take that power, not because she despises you, but because the system taught her how to use it. You are not loved, you are managed. And the scariest part, you like it. You like the comfort, you like the worship. You like the emotional anesthesia that keeps you from confronting yourself. Because the moment you stop needing her as your savior, you'll be forced to face what's behind that need. And that, not the breakup, is what truly terrifies you. But fear wears many masks, and one of its favorites is romantic devotion. You think you love her purely. You think you're giving yourself entirely. But look deeper. What you're offering is not love. It's negotiation. You say, if I give you my heart, will you heal the parts of me I'm too afraid to face alone? But you're not looking for a partner. You're looking for a solution. And as you offer your soul in exchange for comfort, she listens, not to your words, but to your needs. Not because she is cruel, but because every vulnerability you reveal becomes a map of your emotional pressure points. And she learns them quickly, not to cause harm, but to carve out a space in your psyche where she becomes irreplaceable. Nature saw this. It saw that what we often call love is really a subtle contest over emotional territory. Who sets the pace of closeness? Who pulls away first? Who concedes last? These aren't questions of attachment. They're questions of power. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The one who needs less controls more. You give her everything. Your time, your attention, your identity. You call it sincerity. She gives you just enough of what you crave to keep you chasing. She calls it connection. But it's not connection. It's choreography. We built a culture where women are taught to influence without leading, and men are taught to submit while thinking they're winning. This is not her fault. It's not yours. It's the result of centuries where men held the outer world and women mastered the inner. And now, in modern life, you walk into this trap smiling. She doesn't need to argue. She needs to hint. She doesn't need to demand. She needs to desire. And through that, she shapes you, your choices, your identity, without ever raising her voice. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. You call her mysterious because you don't understand. And you don't understand because you've never questioned your own myths. You still believe love is unity, but she knows love is leverage, and when she pulls away, it haunts you. Not because she's gone, but because your reflection vanished with her. As Nietzsche might say, you never loved her. You loved how she made you feel about yourself. She was the stage where you performed your worth. Now the stage is gone. All that remains is silence and truth. Here is the truth. She didn't deceive you. She simply stopped playing the role you wrote for her. You never truly saw her. You saw your idea of her. And when she no longer fit that image, you called her cold. You called her cruel. But maybe the real betrayal was your own. That you loved a fantasy and demanded that she live inside it. Nature didn't condemn women. It condemned the men who refuse to grow up. Men who seek muses instead of mirrors. Men who beg for angels rather than daring to face the full, terrifying complexity of a real human being. If you're ready to stop blaming her, then you're ready to face yourself, not with guilt, not with shame, but with clarity. And from clarity, something radical can begin. Not the end of love, but its transformation. You were taught that love is the highest virtue, that selfless love is the mark of a true man. But what if that selflessness is just emotional dependency in disguise? What if behind every poetic gesture, behind every grand declaration, there's a quiet fear? If I don't give her everything, she'll leave. So you give, you submit, you erase yourself to meet her expectations, not because you love her, but because you're terrified of losing her. That's not nobility, that's submission masquerading as romance. And while you believe you're performing an act of love, she doesn't feel affection, she feels control. Not through force, but through your constant orbit around her approval. Because here's the truth, nature whispered to those who dared to listen. Love rooted in need can never be equal. It doesn't have to ask you to change, yet you change. It doesn't demand obedience, yet you obey. Why? Because you convinced yourself that her acceptance is your salvation. But she never asked to be your savior, she simply was. And you turned that into a mirror for your worth. So when the mirror cracked, you didn't feel loss, you felt collapse. Because what you were protecting was never love. You were protecting a story where, if she loves me, I am whole. If she stays, I matter. But stories are not truth, and when reality breaks through, you call it betrayal. Nietzsche would have called it awakening. The lie wasn't that she had power. The lie was that you didn't see it. You called her gentle. She was observant. You called her nurturing. She was strategic. You thought she surrendered. She was choosing, always choosing. Because she understood something you didn't. The one who sees the dynamic clearly holds the key. And now, finally, the illusion begins to crack. You remember her smiles. But behind those smiles, something was always calculating. You remember how she responded to your emotional shifts before you even voiced them. You thought, she's intuitive. And yes, she was. But for her, intuition isn't a gift. It's survival. A way to stay one step ahead in a world that denied her the right to confront, but granted her the power to shape. This isn't about blame. It's about reality. You live in a world where love is sold as mutual surrender, but practiced as mutual leverage. Where vulnerability is praised as a virtue, but traded like currency. And once you see that, you have two choices. You either grow up or you fall apart. Most people fall apart. They retreat to the myth, find a new muse, a new partner for their emotional stage. They tell themselves, this time it'll be different, but it won't be, because the roles remain. Only the actors change. As long as you need her to play a role, you will never meet the person behind the mask. But what happens when the mask slips? When you stop looking for roles and begin to see reality, you begin to notice what was always there. Not manipulation, not malice, but instinct. A woman aware of her lack of institutional power, learning to wield relational power instead. Not because she craves control, but because that's the only power she was allowed to have. So ask yourself, not, is she ready to love me? But, am I ready to see her without the myth? Because only then will you see yourself, and only then will love stop being a fairy tale and start becoming a revolution. If this unsettled you, if it opened your eyes in a way only truth can, then you are ready. Ready to see, ready to let go of illusion, ready to begin again. Not in search of the perfect woman, but in search of an honest version of yourself.